Greetings one and all to another Dark Rider Pony review, reminding you once again that even a cheeseburger can be deconstructed to its original source. It has been a while since I've done a review in video format, but I certainly hope with this new season comes a rejuvenated enthusiasm and more punctual fashion creating these reviews. Still, we have 2 new episodes that are ripe for analysis, and I am more than happy to provide everyone with my own deconstruction of Princess Twilight Sparkle episodes 1 and 2. How have these episodes continued the major story arc events we saw in Magical Mystery Cure? Let's find out. Right from the start, this episode shows that the writers are really paying attention to the pace of Twilight's character development. Many bronies and Pegasisters were not entirely happy with seeing Twilight's victory lap at the end of Magical Mystery Cure, adding more fuel to those who claim that Twilight is a Mary Sue, a claim I will debunk later. However, now we are seeing that, like in Equestria Girls, whatever caused that flight seemed to be a fluke, as Twilight is showing she has quite a bit of trouble mastering flight, which is perfectly understandable. While it is not quite established what the average age for Pegasus flight is, being born with wings would obviously give them much more time to learn the complexities of flight than if you had them for less than a month as an adult pony. While Twilight is shown she is just able to get airborne, she has trouble maintaining a steady hover and even greater trouble trying to land. After all, we didn't actually see her landing at the end of Magical Mystery Cure, so we don't know how well that went, but regardless. It is great to see Rainbow Dash being the one to be Twilight's flight teacher, providing a moment of slapstick that quite firmly establishes that Twilight is still the neurotic perfectionist we have come to love over the past 3 seasons. We get a good number of scenes where she is stressing out over plans for the Summer Sun celebration and feeling the pressure and responsibility that becoming an Alicorn princess now burdens her with. She wants to accept her responsibility and is clearly dedicated to making the Summer Sun celebration go extra smoothly. This event is given extra weight by the fact that Celesta feels very strongly about this year's event, considering that it is no longer about celebrating the defeat of Nightmare Moon, but the return and reformation of Princess Luna. But on top of this, the biggest point of her existing character traits being intact post-Alicorn transformation is how she reacts to her friends addressing her as Princess Twilight. She states quite clearly that while she does not have a problem with other ponies addressing her as such, she doesn't like her friends referring to her as this title. This firmly establishes what I expected what was briefly shown at the end of Magical Mystery Cure, and was my biggest worry for myself and many other bronies had when news broke that she would be becoming Alicorn. Her status in relation to her friends. This doesn't mean that Twilight is not willing to take command when she needs to. We clearly see how Twilight can think on her feet enough to send real guards to keep looking for Celestia and Luna. It just means that Twilight can separate what she feels as her duty as a newly crowned Alicorn princess, despite the pressure it comes with from her friendship with the other members of the main 6. Just as other episodes have shown, she knows that her friendship has got to her becoming an Alicorn to begin with, and that no status elevation is going to change that. And this is where the accusation of Twilight being a Mary Sue completely collapse. According to the Urban Dictionary, a Mary Sue is defined as a female fanfiction character who is so perfect as to be annoying. The male equivalent is a Marty Stew, or a Gary Stew as I like to say, often abbreviated as Sue. The Mary Sue is a character who is always beautiful, smart, etc. In short, she is the perfect girl. It has been claimed by a fair few bronies and Pegasisters that Twilight has become too perfect, even as far to go to suggest that her flaws somehow always work in her favour and everyone still loves her for these flaws. Seeing as Alicorns generally appear to be godlike entities, as we see the results of Princess Luna and Celestia disappearing, people claim that Twilight becoming an Alicorn has made her perfect at everything and instantly better than everyone else. This is of course complete nonsense. For one, Twilight's flaws have never worked to her advantage. The themes of her episode are usually focused around being an obsessive overthinker, dramatising and thinking the worst of relatively minor situations. Lesson 0 and It's About Time being perfect examples of this. In both of these episodes, Princess Celestia is showing Twilight that she does not need to get everything exactly perfect to still be a good student. She doesn't need to put a friendship report in every week if there's nothing to learn. She doesn't need to be constantly trying to figure out with this half-given future message is when there is no evidence to any lingering disaster on the horizon. Hell, even the Crystal Empire two-parter, we see that her cooperation with Spike and getting the desired result was all that Celestia required for her to pass the test. These story elements do not mean that she is completely perfect and that all of her flaws have no effect on how people like her. Instead, we are shown what her flaws are, in fact, parts of her personality, and negatively affect her and are often irrational. This is not just a fantastic message for kids, but with the addition of her lack of initial flying skills and her clear establishment that she considers her friends to be on equal footing to her, shows that she has not developed any kind of superiority complex as many initially feared. Still not convinced? Later in the episode, Twilight repeatedly assaulted by dangerous creatures in the Everfree Forest, which requires her friends to jump in and save her. Twilight shows that she is intent on using her wings to escape the situation, which she obviously cannot do properly yet. Now, Twilight would be a Mary Sue if she did everything that the main six can do and better. If her alicorn hood suddenly made her completely perfect and be able to do Rarity's dressmaking or Applejack's farming or Pinkie Pie's partying, then she would be a Mary Sue. But no, she has not gained so much power that she triumphs everyone else in every skill and everyone still loves her for it. She still needs her friends. She's still a part of the group. And while her character has developed significantly, we are still seeing the character flaws and traits that we have seen from the start of the series. She is developing at a good pace, and so I consider the Twilight of Mary Sue to be well and truly busted. This now leads into a couple of scenes which has gathered bigger criticisms to my fellow Brony analysts, primarily the ever-awesome Tommy Oliver has mentioned in this crossover review with Digibrony. I will, first of all, defend the motivations of Twilight's friends sending her back out of harm's way from the Everfree Forest. Considering the havoc that is already taking place without Equestria's primary rulers in place, Twilight's friends were taking what they felt was a difficult but safe option for the greater good of Equestria. It is a decision they later admit they regretted and was done out of haste, but given the dilemma that they were in, it is understandable they would want to take the safer option and protect Twilight as one of the few remaining rulers who was still prevalent. This isn't the problem with the scene, however. As Tommy Oliver rightly pointed out, the pacing of the scene is much too quick. It is over and done with in less than 5 minutes, with Discord convincing Twilight to return to her friends almost as soon as she got there. While this is a great moment for Discord, which I shall talk about in a moment, there is almost no drama and tension to the scene because there was no time for it to settle and feel significant at all. There could have been other ways to question whether Twilight should be risking her own life to be significant to her friends, but alas, this remains one of the weakest parts of the episodes. The other big criticism of the episode is the MacGuffin-powered potion by alicorn magic. While I do like the concept of Zikora's magic potion giving Twilight flashbacks to Equestria's past, something I will talk more about later, I do feel that it was explained in a very half-assed fashion and rushed way. They just throw in a MacGuffin to make it all happen and say it's only powered by alicorn magic without any justification for it. It's all just cause hand-waving. Now, as a lover of fantasy literature myself, I know a perfect example of where this concept of visions into the past can be done and has been done better. World of Warcraft. In the Warcraft universe, we have established that the entire species of dragon, the bronze dragonflight, are magical masters of time and that there is a magical location called the Caverns of Time. In the Caverns of Time, in various group events, you can go back into the past to a specific location in Warcraft history to prevent major events being changed by interfering dragons. The bronze dragonflight directly involved players in these time travel shenanigans. This is the entire basis for the War of the Ancients novel trilogy, which sets up a mystery and gives details on the mechanics into how time travel happens. I don't expect to be given a full explanation, but just enough that I can suspend my disbelief and accept it as part of the world. MLP has done a great job so far of establishing rules to magic and has done some fantastic world building. There is quite a bit of world building that's already done in this episode to make me feel absorbed like it's a living, breathing world. So just throwing a random MacGuffin without prior establishment or explanation is just plain lazy. Thankfully, this really is the extent of flaws in the episode, as it really does get a lot more right than it does wrong. I did mention Discord earlier, and I think it's important to really make a mention of how awesome his presence is. Many, including myself, felt that Keep Calm and Flutter On was quite rushed in developing Discord, even though I myself didn't have many problems with that episode as a whole. But these episodes show there is still quite a way to go for Discord to be developed. He is the embodiment of chaos, and his sarcastic taunts and sly pranks are still a huge part of his character. It makes sense that given the scale of the unfolding events, Discord would be the primary suspect considering what he did to the main six when they first encountered him. Fluttershy is still the voice of reason in this situation, suggesting that they would at least give Discord the benefit of the doubt before blaming everything on him entirely. This and how Fluttershy stares at him towards the end of part 2 shows that Discord is reformed enough to obey Fluttershy because of their established friendship. So while Discord was partly responsible in the end, the way he convinced Twilight to return to her friends and comments on Twilight's status as a princess of friendship shows his development is actually quite subtle. I never saw Discord as a purely evil character to begin with. I frequently use the Dungeons & Dragons alignment chart that will affect the nature of their actions. As such, I found that Discord was always more chaotic neutral than chaotic evil. He takes huge pleasure in causing mass chaos and flipping personality of ponies around, but all for his own benefit. I suspect if the changelings were present, he would be doing the exact same thing to them. He causes chaos to everyone, not out of any malice, but simply because he finds it entertaining. He has never had any purpose for causing chaos other than simple self-amusement. Here we see hints that he is shifting more towards chaotic good. He still pranks ponies a lot, and he is still doing it with more a positive outcome on occasion. He even mentions that he helped Twilight learn a lesson about friendship through his actions, as well as a clear explanation as to where he exists most of the time for being summoned. I would like to see more subtle hints as the season goes on to show his character development to the point where he is a lot more chaotic good in alignment. I would actually like to see the limitations of Discord. How far is he willing to go to cause chaos? Are there evil entities which even he thinks is beyond his morality judgment? Is there something where he thinks the main six are going too far on? Perhaps a more direct contrast between chaotic evil, chaotic good and chaotic neutral, or even more varying shades of evil, would be more interesting to see a marker for Discord's character development in future. Discord is and always will be the embodiment of chaos. To stop him being chaotic completely would be a complete betrayal of his character, but how he uses this chaos and the results that come of it are the most important factor. Now, onto what I think is the shining glory of these episodes, the flashbacks to the Tree of Harmony. As I have stated earlier, I am a huge fan of fantasy literature. I love world building, sword and sorcery, and epic heroic adventures across fantasy lands. Dungeons & Dragons, Dragonlance, Warcraft, and even power metal bands like Gloryhammer and Rhapsody of Fire all fire up my imagination and have epic details of a world much grander and different from our own. One of the reasons I ever gave MLP Friendship is Magic a chance to begin with is because I wanted to give it an objective critique as a piece of fantasy literature, regardless of any gender roles that may be associated with the franchise. The fact that it begins with an adventure and a tale from the past really got me hooked in the show for good. And how we are expanding the mythos by witnessing events. The reason we see Princess Luna's transformation into Nightmare Mood and the first defeat of Discord is to give an emphasis on the importance and power of the elements of harmony. Considering that they have been used in many of the most important victories within the series before, returning them to the Tree of Harmony where they were first discovered, meaning they are giving up a tremendous power to keep the world stable. Being a writer of fantasy literature myself, one of the golden rules in writing fantasy is magic must have limitations and rules to it. This is why I hated Feeling Pinky Keen so much. Not because of its potential religious implications in the moral, but because of how anti-world building the episode is, and how it blatantly punished Twilight for trying to understand how an unknown force of magic worked. I'm glad that we got some hints later in the season about how Pinkie Pie's pinky sense does have some kind of structure to it, but the fact that Twilight was just punished so much and the whole moral was to just not question it was a complete betrayal of all the intelligent writing into how works of magic go in Equestria have come before it. We have seen repeatedly throughout MLP how magic can be manipulated, and now even in this very episode we see how unicorn characters are losing control of their magic thanks to the millennial-old seeds that Discord planted. We see how the magic of Celestia and Luna completely throw out the balance of the natural day and night cycle within their absence, in addition to how the residual magic in the Tree of Harmony was limited without the elements that were a key part of it. Now you may be thinking, why do I give the Tree of Harmony a free pass and the MacGuffin of the Archon Potion was considered the down point of the episode? The simple answer is that these flashbacks established that the elements of harmony and the tree itself have been a more vital part of this world for much longer than Celestia and Luna have been alive. They are an essential part of Equestria from what we know. More importantly, we see how the elements of harmony are a resistant magical force to evil magic that will throw the world into havoc. It implies that the world needs a balance of forces and for magical presences to be there, as well as the risks that the main six are taking by making this a necessary sacrifice. But more importantly, this episode opens the door up for a lot of potential as to what could happen in future episodes. There have been cases where magical powers and items save the day rather than the elements of harmony. Twilight can't just find out blast the bad guys spell, because it's clear that only something with really old and really powerful magic can take care of these evil forces when on such a grand scale. A simple levitation spell isn't going to save the entire day. It's all a matter of scale when it comes to individual and different magic spells. In other words, magic is the lifeblood of Equestria, and there will always be a measure and countermeasure between good and evil magic. So far, these are some of the crowning episodes to show both the frailty and power that magic has in Equestria. The elements of harmony are a source of magical power for the tree, and without it the residual magical is a limited source which has consequences when it runs out. The fact this is all shown through amazing animation and even development for Princess Celestia over the love she has for her sister added to top-notch writing and world building for this episode providing. Not to mention the potential season-wide story arc of what's in the box requiring 6 keys to open, and how Twilight's alicorn magic is relevant in the wider world with implications of destiny created within this locked box. Only time will tell how the story arc progresses, but for now I think it's time to sum up this episode. Despite the stumbles in pacing and poorly explained MacGuffin, I feel that the drama, the world building and the character development all round make Princess Twilight Sparkle an excellent start to season 4 and left me wanting more, which is why I'm awarding it with a straight A rating. Hopefully I will be able to continue with making videos for every episode of season 4, but until then, this is the Nightmare Rider, riding out.